Hey, it's the Empire. Geoboxing Empire. Boxing Boxing. Nah, man. Deontay Wilder, man. He hopped in the ring after Andy Ruiz's complete domination of Luis King Kong Ortiz, man. Andy Ruiz dropped Ortiz 3 times, man. Completely dominating and just, doing whatever he wanted to Luis King Kong Ortiz whenever he let his hands go. When they both threw, Andy was getting the best of it, man. And Deontay Wilder, man, he came in the ring, he hopped in, and he challenged Andy Ruiz. Now, this is a really big deal. Understand that Deontay Wilder was rooting for Luis King Kong Ortiz before the fight. He thought he'd win the fight. And, that's Deontay Wilder's biggest win. His biggest win is Luis King Kong Ortiz. And he went life and death with King Kong. This fight with Andy Ruiz, he did not go life and death with King Kong Ortiz. He completely... whenever he threw his hands, he was getting dominated. There was times where he was getting outboxed. I'm not going to pretend like Andy Ruiz was completely beating Luis King Kong Ortiz. He got outboxed at times, but when he threw his hands, every time he landed on King Kong, the guy was getting dropped. Now this could be to Deontay Wilder stopping him twice, and basically denting Luis King Kong Ortiz's chin, but understand that Deontay Wilder, when he fought Tyson Fury, both times, the second and third fight, he got stopped. So that being said, is Deontay Wilder's punch resistance down? That's a very, very real possibility, man. A lot of people are talking about how Deontay Wilder was never the same after the Tyson Fury 2 fight and the glove gate controversy with Tyson Fury having wraps in his gloves or not having padding in his gloves and really doing more damage than it should be done within such a short period of time when they fought the second time, right? It was like a 7th round knockout, stage 1 by Deontay Wilder. But in the third fight, it definitely went a lot longer, right? It went a lot longer with Deontay Wilder taking much more punishment. The second fight, the punches were superhuman, dang near. It was superhuman, So all that being said, man, Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz are going to fight, man. Is this a closer fight now than it would have been pre-Tyson Fury? I do think so, man. A lot of people are saying that Deontay Wilder would stop Andy Ruiz, and that's a real possibility. But understand that Deontay Wilder, his possibility of stopping anyone has always been basically the same, which is if he lands the right hand, can you really take that punch? And most people really can't take that punch outside Tyson Fury. But even he was getting dropped in that, and any kind of clean shot landed by Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury was getting dropped, and he was hanging on for dear life every single time. Can Andy Ruiz take the same punches? We're gonna see, man. Deontay Wilder, he dropped a lot of weight after the Tyson Fury 3 fight. He's gonna be fighting Robert Helenius soon. We're gonna see how he looks when he comes in to fight Robert Helenius. Understand, which is really interesting too, is Deontay Wilder and Robert Helenius have sparred, numerous times, especially in the preparation of Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder 3. So they know each other really well. So when they get in and they fight round 1, understand this is not Deontay Wilder fighting to Robert Helenius in round 1. This is like their, 13th, 14th, 15th round fighting each other because they spar each other, like I said, for the Tyson Fury fight. How many rounds did they really put in? I'm guessing more than 3 or 4 rounds. The guy flew from all the way from overseas to come to Deontay Wilder's camp. So all that being said, man, this is going to be a really big fight between Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz. Like I said earlier, this is a more competitive fight because this is after Deontay Wilder fought Tyson Fury and took all of that punishment, Will that weigh in on Deontay Wilder, man? We're going to see how he looks against Robert Helenius in his fight. But it looks like Andy Ruiz is on his way up, man, and Deontay Wilder, could he be on his way down? I mean, we're going to have to see in this Robert Helenius fight. But, those 2 losses from Tyson Fury definitely took some years out of Deontay Wilder's career. Understand, if Deontay Wilder would have, whipped through Tyson Fury, people would be calling this a cherry pick between between Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz. But now that Deontay Wilder has shown vulnerability, this is a 50-50 fight, man. A 50-50 fight for sure. We all know that Andy Ruiz can't really move too well. He's really fast, but Deontay Wilder moves a little better than Andy Ruiz, but his movement is more based off quickness than pure boxing. All that being said, man, Andy Ruiz, man, he has some really good right hooks. He was dropping King Kong Ortiz with those wicked right hooks, and it looks like this. It looks like the same kind of punch that Deontay Wilder was getting hit by when he fought Tyson Fury. And in my opinion, Andy Ruiz looked like he hits a little bit harder than Tyson Fury when he was hitting King Kong Ortiz with those right hooks. Those are the exact same punches that were giving Deontay Wilder trouble, and that's where his old injury was, behind his left ear, I believe. When you throw a right hook, you hit him, and then its equilibrium is just all off, right? So if you hit Wilder right in the chin, he can take the punch, but if you start hitting him in the weird looping shots, that's his weakness. So we're gonna see how this whole thing plays out, man. I'll be really excited to see the fight. This is the fight that should have happened a long time ago when Andy Ruiz had 3 of the 4 titles when he beat Anthony Joshua for those titles, and they're talking about undisputed fight between Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz. This fight is still talked about. It's still a big fight in America. It's still a massive fight, and it's wild because fighters losing doesn't change the fact that the fight is still a big fight, right? I think Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, they're talking about that fight's going to be made in December, right? Think Manny Pacquiao when he got knocked out by Manuel Marquez. That happened, but Pacquiao still fought Mayweather after he got knocked out by Marquez. So some fights are still big fights, regardless, win, lose, or draw. So, undefeated is cool and all, but hey, man, there's a reason why, there's very few undefeated fighters you can really point to with the full body of work. The one you really can point to with the, decades of domination of champions back to back to back is only really Floyd Money Mayweather. You still have other fighters like Rocky Marciano or like Joe Kawasaki, but those are like 1 or 2 guys, maybe 3 or 4 guys you can really point to and say, okay, those are really, really top echelon fighters. But with Floyd Money Mayweather, it's big names: Miguel Cotto, Oscar De La Hoya, Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez. The list goes on and on. I can keep naming these guys, until 3 a.m. That being said, that doesn't mean everything, man. Sometimes the fans are fans of the moment, and sometimes people just want to be entertained. And a Deontay Wilder versus Andy Ruiz fight, that's an explosive fight, man. That's an explosive fight. So I'll be really excited to see it, man. There's a storyline there. Like I said earlier, Deontay Wilder was going for Luis King Kong Ortiz, came to his camp, talked about how, Ortiz, he fights for his daughter like he fought for his daughter, and that's what the bond is. And, that's why he was going for King Kong Ortiz, which is, a good place, man. It's a good place to be in, because a lot of people talk about, deadbeat dads, but they don't really talk about the guys who are really there dedicating their life to take care of the family, by themselves, a single father. That's what Deontay Wilder really is. He's a single father. Before he got with his fiance, now girlfriend /girlfriend, he took care of his daughter by himself. No one talks about that, really. No one talks about it. But anyway, Deontay Wilder, man, stand-up man, a man of character, a man of pride, a man of many things. People like him and they want to see him again. Definitely an exciting fighter. Andy Ruiz, what can you say, man? The guy, he shocked the world and he beat Anthony Joshua. Is he on his way up? Was it a fluke, or can he keep it up? Is he that guy? It's looking like it, man. That Luis Ortiz fight was a shocker. A lot of people thought that Ortiz was completely outboxed him, but Andy Ruiz drew first blood by dropping King Kong Ortiz, and basically had Ortiz thinking about trying to keep him at distance and not really try to impose himself physically and really try to put the beating on Andy. It took the fight out of him. When you hurt a guy right away, it makes that guy think about other things than trying to impose himself. It makes him think about survival. It makes him think about being tactical and instead of trying to overwhelm the guy. So all that being said, man, Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz, man, that's a big fight. I'm glad Deontay Wilder hopped in the ring. A lot of people talk about how Deontay Wilder is fighting this bum, that bum. Everyone's a bum. But then I talk about all the big names he's calling out. Deontay Wilder's not afraid of nobody, man. He's just not afraid of nobody, right? Andy Ruiz is a big name, man. He's a former unified champion. That's facts. And, we see how he's doing when he matches himself up with other big names. He's making it look easy, a cakewalk, a cakewalk. So we're going to see how this whole thing plays out with Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz, man. They say it's going to happen after Robert Helenius. Could it happen this year, later this year? Could it happen in the beginning of next year? God knows, man. It all depends on how, my boy Deontay Wilder looks against Robert Helenius, if he can get through it. Andy said he wants to be more active. He said he wants to fight 3-4 times a year. So will he get another fight in? There would most likely be, man. I mean, there's plenty of time, right? It's September right now. October, November, December, that's 3 more months. He can get one more fight in, even if it's a cupcake. Keep the guy in the ring, keep him in shape. Don't let this guy, get a reason to start eating and being lazy, because that's the last thing fighters need. Fighters need to stay busy. Even if it's not the biggest fight in the world, it keeps them busy. The roster of the PBC is massive, and they definitely got plenty of fighters to feed, man, to make a big name. Maybe he can fight in Mexico. I mean, he can fight many places just to get his name out there. So, I'm a big fan of Andy, man. I love Deontay Wilder too, man. Two big name fighters, man. 2 former world champions, and this is a big fight, man. Anyway, man, let me know how you guys feel about it, though. Who you guys got to fight? That's gonna be a big one. We're gonna see how Deontay Wilder looks for the Robert Helenius fight, but that's a big one too. Let me know how you guys feel about it, though. Like, comment, subscribe. It's the Empire, Geobasket Empire. Peace.